Are we still waiting for some people, Josh, or we're good to go?
Yeah, we're waiting for a couple more here. So what I'll do is I'll read through the intro here that we have to get folks up to speed and what we're going to do tonight and go from there. So good evening, fellow Huskies, and welcome to our new virtual Welcome to the Neighborhood series. My name is Josh Prue. I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement here at the UConn Foundation. I'm also a proud 2005 graduate, and I have the pleasure of being your host this evening. Joining me from the UConn Alumni Relations team is our Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement and Chapters and Alumni Networks, Lauren Davies, who will be handling all of our production aspects today. For many of you, you're familiar with our Welcome to the Neighborhood series. It's an event series that occurs in all of our regional cities across the country that we have good populations. And usually at the late August, September timeframe, gives you an opportunity to meet fellow Huskies who live in the city that you may now find yourself in, as well as opportunities to socialize and get to know people. Obviously, with everything else these days and our normal get-togethers, whether we're at a brewery, a baseball game, a vineyard, or you name it, it's just not possible right now. So what we've done is we've pivoted. We found ourselves here hanging out tonight, all on our computers, clearly on the edge of our seats to find out all the different things that we need to know about moving into Hartford. And we've got a great panel here who's going to help us understand what that's all about. So to those of you who are newest members of the Husky family, welcome to the alumni community and congrats on finding yourself as part of the greatest network and most important network of your friends and of your careers that you're going to know. I can personally attest to the strength of this network, both as an alum and as someone who works very closely with all the folks regionally across the country and globally. You definitely find Huskies who want to help Huskies everywhere you look. So make sure you tap into that network. For those of you joining us that are more seasoned pups, we definitely welcome you and are glad that you're here joining us. We're going to lean on you pretty heavily in our happy hour aspect that we're going to launch into at the end of this. So we'll hopefully hear from you then. Today, we're excited to bring you, obviously, a panel of Hartford experts. So people who have done what you are hoping to do or perhaps are doing, and you're just trying to get a couple of insights as to some new places you might want to check out. We hope to cover things from apartment hunting to what bars are the best and most friendly to Huskies, public transit tricks, and we hope to cover a little bit of a lot. So we'll get things rolling tonight. But before we do, a couple of housekeeping things just to make sure everybody can fully take advantage. Obviously, you've received numerous emails from us at this point. One of those was to go ahead and update your mailing address. And if you did that by the deadline, we're going to be mailing you out some UConn alumni lanyards. So towards the end of the month, check your mail for that. We'll be doing that all in one mailing for all of our events. So we'll be doing that closer to the end of the month. Next, we also know questions are going to pop up. And Matt and I were just chatting a little bit about that. If you do have those questions, go ahead and throw those in the Q&A box down on the bottom of your toolbar panel. We'll go ahead and we'll take care of getting those over to the panel here tonight so they can answer those, and we'll do our best to answer all of those. And if we don't get to them all, we have time together in a happy hour format and face-to-face where all of you will get a chance to be on camera with these guys and ask some questions. So hopefully we'll see some of those. And last, we realize it's hard to meet people, and I've alluded to this already, so we've included a post-panel happy hour, an opportunity to meet via Zoom meetings. At the conclusion of this presentation, a pop-up is going to show up. And if it doesn't, we'll provide, obviously, the URL and the link as well in the chat function. And you will now also be getting an email sent to you, again, while you're actually participating in this presentation tonight, that will provide you the information you need to click on so that you can get redirected into that happy hour so you don't necessarily have to go hunting for it. But we'll provide it multiple times in the chat. We'll also send you that email, and you'll, again, hear from me before things are wrapped up to remind you about that. So don't forget to turn on your camera, grab your favorite beverage. Hopefully it's from an alumni-owned brewery. We've totally told you about those over the number of years that you probably have been participating either with us or hearing about them, as you might have heard of our 1881 series. Make sure you copy that link and get into that. So don't worry, you have the info. And on to tonight. We are excited to have this great Hartford panel of Hartford experts with us tonight. Leading the charge is our moderator, and who I like to call Mr. Hartford, is Matthew Necci. Matt is a partner at Haller & Sage, which is a pretty prominent law firm in the Hartford area. He's a diehard Husky. He's rocking some new swag that we as a panel were just talking about, the college Jonathan leading on the sea, which I happen to have. I didn't wear it because, as we were also talking about, not all of us have central air. So it's a little warm and toasty for something like that. Matt, I'll turn this show over to you, and we'll see everybody at the end of the presentation.
Thanks, Josh. And I actually turned my central air on like 68 degrees so I could wear this sweatshirt. So thank you, everyone, for taking part in what I think is a really important topic. Again, my name is Matt Necci. I am a class of liberal arts and sciences grad from 2003. another perspective just so you can appreciate how old I am. I'm 39 years old, married, kids, so I'm a little farther down than some of our other panelists. But Hartford and UConn and the connection that they have and how important they are to each other, I think is something that's underappreciated in our state. So before we dive fully into that, I've given a brief introduction of who I am. I'm going to have our other panelists introduce themselves as well, starting with Aaron Clark.
Good afternoon, good evening rather, UConn alumni. Listen, I'm going to start out right away and say you guys are pups. You're still yipping. You haven't got the full bark yet, but the bark is on the way. So we're going to help you get the bark. That's part of tonight's call. Just kidding. But Aaron Clark, I'm at Starkweather Shepley Insurance Brokerage. I'm an agent helping people with their home and auto insurance, business insurance, life insurance. I was a 2007 undergrad and 2008 graduate from the Ag School of Education in special ed. So I was a teacher for a while. Yeah, diehard UConn fan, even before going to UConn. So it was even better when I got to go and watch some of the greats play college, play ball, and win a lot of games. The atmosphere was awesome. So good to be back with you guys tonight.
Fernando, you're up.
Hello, thank you everybody for being here. It's a great opportunity. My name is Fernando. I graduated in 2015 from the School of Business and Finance, and I am actually currently doing my MBA at UConn on a part-time basis. After school, I graduated and worked at the Hartford a little bit. Now I'm at Travelers Insurance. I can truly say that the alumni network is very strong in Hartford, and I've had a great opportunity to network with a lot of alum at my current job at Travelers. So I look forward to telling you a little bit more about my time working and being a Husky.
Megan.
Hey, I'm Megan. I am originally from New Jersey, but now live in Hartford, and I'm actually someone who left Hartford and moved back. So if that's a testament to the city at all. But I graduated from UConn in 2014 from the journalism program in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I now work at the Hartford Courant and have been there. I started after I graduated in 2014, did a stint in New York, and like I said, came back, and I'm working as the Director of Audience Engagement, which is really just a buzzy word to say I manage their old digital site. So everything from social media to newsletters to anything you see on current.com. And for those who don't know, the Current is the paper record here in Connecticut.
Gina.
Hey guys, I'm Gina. I graduated in 2015 from the School of Fine Arts. I have my BFA in acting. Currently, I'm kicking it at Lululemon, and I'm the social media coordinator over there just for our store. And then I also work for Watermark, which is a digital marketing agency. So like Megan, I run a lot of social media accounts, create content, photo, video, all that fun stuff. And previously, the past 2 seasons, you may have seen me ringside with UConn men's ice hockey. I was the in-game host and then also handled some of the in-game digital media for them as well. So I'm excited to be here and share with you all the great things about being an alum.
Awesome. I'm going to follow up with something Megan said. I too am someone who left Connecticut to go to New York City for law school, and thought I would be staying there and ended up coming back to Hartford. Some family reasons and some just opportunity. I think what's not appreciated is Connecticut and Hartford in particular has some of the benefits of a big city without necessarily having the overwhelming number of people. So I have found that you can very quickly, from a professional perspective, climb the professional ladder incredibly quickly, more so than you probably could where you're a drop in the bucket in Washington, D.C. or New York or Boston. But also from a personal perspective, we have great schools here for my kids. I tell people this all the time when I'm talking up Hartford. Find more places in the world that would make a 3-hour radius around them and have access to New York City, Boston, world-class skiing, world-class beaches. There are not a lot of places in the world that have that, and particularly our location between, we say we stay in the area, but our location and cost of living between New York and Boston is something that would be the envy of most other parts of the world. And I think that's something, frankly, as Hartford professionals and as a corporate community, we need to do a better job selling that. And we don't do it enough. So Megan, I was interested in just hearing a little bit more of, you said you moved and came back. So what was some of the background for that?
Sure. So like I said, I started at the Hartford Courant in 2014 after I graduated and was there for a few years. And I'm from New Jersey. My whole family's in New Jersey. So I really wanted to be closer to home for a little bit. So I got a job in New York, worked there for about 3 years, and then an opportunity came up at the Courant. That one was a good professional opportunity. Like you were saying, Matt, it's just an opportunity I wouldn't have gotten anytime soon in the market that I was in New York. So I wanted to seize that. But on top of that, I was excited to come back because what I wasn't finding in New York that I had in Hartford, and something that I didn't take advantage of the first time, or I guess didn't realize how important it was to me the first time, was the ability to create a social circle just as quickly as you can grow professionally. Again, it's a small city and it feels like a small town. And whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it really depends on what you're looking for. But I loved that I can go to certain events and see some of the same people and be able to build relationships and make friends. And that's something that's a little harder to do in a big city. And again, like I said, most of my family, most of my friends, they're not from here. So I was in Hartford, I was alone, and I was going to events alone and was able to, again, build relationships, make connections in that way. So that's something, that sense of community was something that I missed when I left and was in a bigger city, that I was really excited to come back for. And that hasn't changed since I've been back. And I've been back since 2018.
And Aaron, we talked about the young pups on the call who will quickly become ingratiated into our alumni network. But I guess, having been out now for a while, what were some of your experiences over the last decade going from a new alum, and how did you transition to building on the relationships that you made through UConn?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Even just Josh, who started this meeting, just meeting him was important to get back into the UConn network. And I guess I'll start by saying I did start as a teacher, and so when you're a teacher, the importance of networking is not as prevalent because you're not climbing any corporate ladder. You're not striving. It's not a competitive field. However, there's still areas where you can build friendships as a teacher to meet other UConn alum. But having shifted my profession over the last few years into the insurance field and business, having the networking is important. And so meeting up with the UConn Foundation, getting connected to Josh and his team has been important. Because the events that are put on, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, for the opportunity for them, for all of you who are listening, the events that are put on are just phenomenal, where you get to listen to those who have done well in business, and you get to network with other UConn alumni, where maybe they are working in the field that you want to get into, and they've been doing it for 20 years, and they can give you some tips, or they will give you the interview just because you're a UConn alumni, and not giving you the job, but they'll open the door for you. And it's such a crucial thing. It's such a cliche. It's not what you know, it's who you know, but it's so important. And once again, it's not you're going to get the job because you're a Husky. You're going to get an opportunity because you're a Husky, and now you have to prove yourself. So yeah, I guess that's a long way of saying the foundation and getting involved is definitely a good opportunity for those listening.
Yeah, I think we're preaching a little bit to the choir. Like everything in this world, things are what you make of them. And so UConn does a fantastic job, particularly through the foundation with alumni, of providing opportunities for people to get together. But you have to put yourself out there. And sometimes, especially early on, as you can already tell early on, I don't shut up. So I don't mind talking to people I don't know, but that's not everybody. And so there will be times early on, and this isn't just being a young alum. I mean, you find this when you start a new job, no matter where you are in your career. There is a level of discomfort that you just have to force yourself to get a little bit engaged. And obviously people that are taking part in this call, you're way ahead of the game. So thank you for that.
And Matt, can I throw
Yeah.
something in?
Absolutely.
And that discomfort is so worth it. And the more you do it and the more you practice, the more it's going to be, the easier it's going to become. And doing it confidently, because it's easy to say, oh, I'm 22, I'm 23, I don't have much experience, and be unconfident. But that is quickly overlooked by how you present yourself. And so by getting out to those networking events, employers will look at you and say, wow, yeah, he's 22, 23, but he's got his head on his shoulders. He knows how to interact with me. I'm 30 years older than him. So getting out and doing it regularly is valuable.
Yeah, I could kind of a quick follow-up to Aaron's point too about being a Husky. You have your foot in the door, a topic that you could talk to fellow alumni with. Just doing like a quick search when I got my first job at the Hartford, there were like 25,000 hits for people that also work there. That's 25,000 people I can just reach out to and at least start the conversation with, hi, I'm a fellow Husky alum. Would you mind spending 15 minutes and having a conversation with me? Just helps get your foot in the door, like Aaron was saying.
Fernando, the Travelers, am I correct? They have a UConn alumni network internally at their organization?
That I joined Travelers about a year ago, and it wouldn't surprise me. I know that for the summer interns, they hired about I think 100 summer interns from UConn, which is tremendous. There's like 10 people. I'm in finance, and there's like half of the people are from UConn. So I have definitely a connection with them through that alone.
Matt, I'll answer that question for you. Yes, the answer is true. It's called Team Husky. And in Hartford alone, there are about 800 in one single building. So they do have that.
So
there you go. I learned something.
So Fernando, you should join that.
Yes, definitely.
Companies like the Travelers, we're incredibly blessed. Again, I think we punch way over our weight class when it comes to some of the larger companies that we have. And Travelers in particular, you have someone like Andy Bissett, who's the chief administrative officer. He is a member of UConn's board of trustees. He's kind of, the guy in Hartford when it comes to professionals, and he goes out of his way to help mentor young professionals, particularly with a UConn connection. He was a UConn track star. I think he was an Olympian. So there are people that have that level of connection, and he's, one of the top few people at one of the biggest companies in the country. So Gina, as having gone through graduation, and I know Gina and I are big people on Twitter and Instagram, and I know you've landed in a place now, which is great, but I know you had a year where you were really out there searching. So as a young alum who was in the greater Hartford area, what were your experiences and some of the challenges you faced?
I think the search actually never stops. We're still on it. But in that gap year, before I finally found my footing, I spent a lot of time just trying to make friends because I didn't have any friends around in this area. So I would go to bars by myself a lot to watch games. And that's how I made friends. I made friends with a lot of bartenders, people who were there. I would just connect, people who had UConn hats on. I would find you at the bar and sit kind of near you if the game was happening, so we could all be in a group together. So I did a lot of that, going out, whoever was around, I just tried to get out, going to Hartford. Thankfully, the Hartford Yard Goats had just started their seasons. So getting out to games, just trying to meet people that you're sitting next to, and things like that, making sure that I went back. I was so close, so I made sure that I went back for football games and basketball games, just trying to meet everyone, but also joining different networks on social media. Social media is so huge. I think I'm really good social media friends with a lot of the UConn sports fans because I was willing to tweet that I was watching a game and things like that. And now, through hockey, I see these fans now at games and they flag me down when they're there, which is awesome. So now I've expanded that network in real life, but having a social media presence, if you choose to have one, can be really, really helpful. I know that right now, we aren't able to be together in person. So having that opportunity to create social media friendships is really, really great. And especially the UConn community is so fun on Twitter. Matt, I'm sure that you agree. It's so much fun. But during that year, just trying everything. So if you are out there and you don't kind of know what you're doing, but you're in the Hartford area, just get yourself out there, take a walk around, go. I mean, I don't know if you can really go sit at a bar anymore, but reach out to someone on social media, start a conversation. Everyone is looking for connection and organic connection right now. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
So 2 things to follow up with that. Going to a bar by yourself when you're in your early 20s is considered charming. When you get to my age level, it's not considered charming anymore. So just keep that in mind. But also your point, and again, I work in Hartford, and I've kind of over the last 2 months started to transition back to being downtown. And to be completely blunt, Hartford, like a lot of cities, is in a really tough spot now. There's not enough foot traffic. One of the benefits Hartford had, and again, as someone, other than living in New York for law school for 3 years, I spent my entire life, I grew up in East Hartford and then Glastonbury. Going to Hartford when I was really young was a big deal. We had an NHL hockey team. It was amazing. Then there was a decade or two of just people that did not spend time in the cities, which is why you saw areas like West Hartford and Glastonbury start growing. And that's not a bad thing either, because frankly, I think we need to start treating all of our area towns as a capital region and not necessarily Hartford's a town like any other town, but I digress. But the larger point I'm trying to make is once things open up, we need people on the streets. And I want to transition this talk a little bit into not real estate, but the living. Hartford was making incredible gains before COVID happened by turning a lot of these old buildings that used to house banks and other corporations into apartments, to the tune of having like 95% filled, only 5% occupancy for apartments. And this has obviously created a hit. But in some positive news, there's been a lot of articles from the Courant lately actually highlighting the development around Dono. They're breaking ground on 400 new apartments and other commercial buildings that'll be in that area. There was just another article today where they're going to be turning an old factory, I think, into 65 new units. So as you get thousands of younger people into the city, which was starting to be the trend over the last 3 or 4 years, that brings an energy and a life where now I'm seeing people walking dogs all over the city where that never happened. Going to a Yard Goats game and going to 3 or 4 restaurants before you get there. That's kind of what was happening before all this happened. So I think we have to take some ownership and make sure that when it's safe to get back out there, we do so. Today I was at Hartford Prince buying things because I walked by and it was empty, and I'm able to do that. So I encourage people that can get into Hartford and spend money again safely to do that. But that's a way I wanted to transition. Megan, you live in Hartford, I believe, correct?
I live in downtown Hartford. I live in one of those converted banks that you're talking about. So I've lived in downtown Hartford the whole time that I've been in Hartford. I was on Allen Street for a little while when I first moved there, which used to have a ton of bars and nightlife, not so much right now. They're doing more apartment conversions there. And now I live over on Main Street. And it's really great because I get to walk to work, so the commute's great. And like I said before, just in terms of making friends, and I'm not as extroverted to go to a bar and sit alone. That was not my style. So for me, what really helps was being in the city, because there's a group of young people in Hartford that are super excited to be there and really want to make it great. A lot of artists that are doing really cool things, a lot of arts events around that, and a lot of entrepreneurial spirit, which was great. So my job helped me a lot because I was able to interview some of those people or work with them on projects, and that's how I made a lot of friends. But like I said, it was nice because if you go to a food truck festival and then you go to an art show the next day, you're going to see a lot of the same people, and you can start some of those organic conversations as well. So living in the city has been a huge help. It's also been the way that I've been able to meet some really good friends, just people who lived in my building or lived down the street that I would see in the park a lot. So again, it really depends what you're looking for. For some people, that might not be it. You might not want to have to run into certain people or whatever it is, or want a bigger crowd. But for me, and being a little more introverted, that was a huge help. And again, being in the city and meeting people in my building or on the walk to work, you would see a lot of the same people, walking through the park. That was a huge help. And yeah, living downtown, if you have any questions about that or living in the city proper, happy to answer.
Well, and that's one question. Go ahead, Aaron.
No, I just gotta say, you could tell I'm like you, older Husky, about to retire pup, because she said Allen Street, and I said, oh my goodness, bars and clubs. I mean, that's what I remember when I was in my 20s, because I'm 36 now. But then you said, oh, they've changed things. So clearly, you can tell I'm way out of the scene when it comes to that. So
Right above Envy.
Say it again.
I used to live right above Envy, which was when it was open, because it's like every night was a party there. You could hear music right from your door.
Envy back in the day was a crazy place. That was, yeah. I spent a little time there.
And that's an area that they're trying to redevelop as Union Station. I encourage people, a couple things. One, when you get off this, Google iQuilt. It's IQUILT plan. It's a city redevelopment plan to try to make Hartford more walkable, more lively. There's some things we've done really well. There's some things we just haven't gotten to because of time, resources, money, energy, all that. But look that up. And following up on what Megan said about the young population, whether you live in Hartford or you just work there or you're in the area, also look up the Metro Hartford Alliance's HYPE organization. It's Hartford Young Professionals and Entrepreneurs. Amazing group of people who are active, out doing things, both socially for fun, but also philanthropic, working with nonprofits, things of that nature. But piggybacking on what you were saying before, Megan, is someone that lives in Hartford. The big thing we hear all the time, no supermarket, lack of transportation beyond the bus line that works for some people, but may not be a downtown Hartford thing. So how do you address transportation, buying food, things like that?
Yeah, so actually there are a few supermarkets downtown now, which has been a huge help. Wasn't the case when I first moved there in 2014, but now there's 2 supermarkets right in walking distance from my apartment, which is really nice. So that's been great, especially during the pandemic. It was really nice because they weren't crowded or anything like that. So that was actually a huge help. And then as far as transportation, the Hartford line, which is a new train line that connects from Springfield to Hartford and then goes down to New Haven with stops in between. And then from New Haven, you could hop right onto Grand Central or hop right over to Grand Central. That's new. That's helped a lot. But as far as getting around locally, CT Fast Track is the bus line, which again is decent. It depends where you're trying to go. But for me at least, it's a place where I've needed a car. But that said, garages are super accessible. It's not like New York street parking or anything like that. It's parking, having a car isn't that easy or isn't that hard. For me, I felt it was easier to have a car compared to other cities, but that's just.
And public service announcement, I believe it's after 6 p.m. It's free parking on the street. So it's not, again, you're not going to get a ticket for parking somewhere to go to dinner or a game.
No, and all weekend long is free. So It's not the same stress of having a car in another city. So while you might need it more so than other cities, it's also easier to have one.
Right. Fernando, as someone, you're in Avon. So what's it like? Avon, there's a lot of professional community that's out that way from Hartford, but what do you do to stay in touch with the city other than, you're at the Travelers every day?
Yeah, good point. Big basketball and football and hockey fan. So constantly going into the city to do that and to kind of touch on the public transportation as well. Using the CT Fast Track, I found it to be very helpful. You can go park in the commuter lot and it's like $1 to get downtown. So going there, you got to get food from Bears or, Pig's Eye, the pizza place, and then, go watch a local basketball game. And now that they're in the Big East, a lot of good competition. So, definitely, that's how I stay connected, definitely through sports. Big art scene as well, though. Going and seeing a local artists downtown, some of the exhibits, is definitely a good way to spend a Friday or Saturday night.
How about you, Aaron?
Yeah, so as I've kind of alluded to, my weekend activities have shifted as I've gotten older, married for 10 years, so game's a little different. But, we've actually, my wife and I have really enjoyed, as Fernando was alluding to, the art scene. So, for those of you out there that aren't going to be bar hopping with Gina, Not knocking you, Gina. Hey, it's all good. I used to do that. But there's the Webster Museum, which it's tiny over in West Hartford, but it's absolutely awesome. There's the Wadsworth Athenaeum, which, you know, as Fernando knows, being attached to Travelers, absolutely fantastic museum. They have great exhibits that shift in and out on a regular basis. So my wife and I have definitely delved into the art scene. However, you know, when it's safe again and they're open, Yard Goats, when they say the second best stadium in my AA, they're not kidding. Like, you know, I'm a huge Yankees fan, so I get to go down to New York and watch a game. It's great. But that experience in Hartford is unreal. And then it goes without saying, if I'm going to go check out college sports, I go to Central if I want to go see high school sports. So, all right, that was a dig to Central, because that's just like watching high school. Point is, we sweat UConn blue, baby. But yeah, when they're at the XL, I like going to see them.
I'm going to hop in here, Aaron. I'm not always bar hopping. I did work at Hartford Stage for 10 years. So I do have a strong connection there. I always go see shows. Theater Works is also awesome in downtown. And then there's also Art Street Tavern, which, okay, yes, it is a bar. But if you've ever heard of the Funky Dogs, which is they got started at UConn. It's a huge brass band. They don't play as often anymore, but they usually do concerts there. And they have funk nights on Wednesdays. So if you want to catch a really good music scene, head to Arch Street on Wednesdays when that all gets back and up and going.
Yeah, and I think, you know, talking about and the IQ plan to talk a little about this. Aaron mentioned the Wadsworth. The Wadsworth is the oldest public art museum in the country. Bushnell Park, which we have an ice rink in during the winter, is one of the oldest public parks in the city. I think people, frankly, don't necessarily appreciate, and I'm guilty of this sometimes too. We think of Hartford, you think of the 5 or 6 blocks of downtown, because that's where I spend the majority of my time. But I was very fortunate to go through a program called Quest with Leadership Greater Hartford, which is a nonprofit based in Hartford. And I got to see parts of the city like Parkville, the North End. There's some really impressive things about the city that, again, to Megan's point, unfortunately, we have to either be a walker, and I enjoy long walks, or you have to be willing to get into a car. But you know, we go back to how we started this discussion. A lot of places would love to have some of the assets we have. Being able to go to the Wadsworth and then go down the street and say, I'm going to where Mark Twain wrote some of his finest work. It's kind of an impressive thing that, again, I find that the people that talk poorly about Greater Hartford tend to be people that are from this area, because they just think, well, we're the little brother and we don't really have all these great things. We have a lot of great things. You have to be willing to get out there and do them. But we have all of those things. So,
and Matt, you're so right. Like, I was literally just thinking that is probably our greatest problem, is that we're so close to New York and Boston. Because are we New York? Of course not. Are we Boston? Of course not. But like, if you take Hartford and you put it in Iowa or Idaho, actually Idaho's pretty cool. But if you put it in some of these other states, if you put it in most other states or most other areas, Hartford's like rocking. Hartford's awesome. But, you know, my wife's from Boston, and like, she lived in the Cape. So, you know, she's always like, Hartford. But we decided to shift our mindset a little bit, especially her not being from here, and said, you know what, let's look around and like, let's find out what's here. And we came to find out exactly that. And we're not making the 2-hour commute to go to each of those big cities. And we don't have to fight traffic to go and do it. And we don't have to do all these, you know, pay $20 for a drink because it's a New York City bar. Like, all these crazy things. But you can get the cultural experience. You just got to dig a little bit. But once you get tapped in a little bit, then it gets way easier, because you know where everything is.
Yeah, I'm what I like to call obnoxious in a good way of a UConn fan, but I'm similar for the New York Mets. But again, now having a family of 4, going to a Mets game, besides the trip, I'm spending like close to $1,000 by the end of it. And now when I have season tickets for the Yard Goats, it's a 10-minute drive from Glastonbury. It's $5 to park there, and we sit in the second row and see some really, really good baseball. So for those of you who haven't gone and checked out a game, I encourage you to. If you need someone to go with you, shoot me an email. I'm always happy to connect with people and go to games. Sometimes when they run out of large cups, they serve beers in what looks like a wonton soup bowl, basically. So I always like to go there and Uber home. Okay. How about, and this is a discussion for people. I'm a Gamble season ticket holder for men's basketball. Go to a lot of hockey games, go to some games in Hartford. What's everyone's connection to the city with sports? What's your favorite sport to go to when you're there? Is there a particular opponent that you think is most fun, or that you like to cheer against the most? So Gina, let's start with you. I know you're downtown all the time.
I knew this would happen. I knew I was going to go first. So obviously my favorite team to go watch downtown and also work for would be the men's hockey team. Anytime we play Boston College or Boston University, even UMass, is always going to be a highly competitive, extremely good game. Probably 9 times out of 10, we're going into overtime. We always pull through, which is the best part. So those are my favorite games to go to. And then runner up would be the Yard Goats. But even when we have like those tournament games in downtown Hartford for basketball, even when we had gymnastics a couple of years ago, that was phenomenal to go watch. So my boys in blue on the ice bus take the lead, but the Yard Goats right behind them.
Fernando.
Yeah. Lately, I've grew up being a huge basketball fan, going to downtown Hartford, seeing Kemba Walker get a triple-double, that was one of my childhood, highlights. And lately, though, it's been moving toward hockey. Recently, the UMass game, I went to go see the UMass game when they were like top 10, and UConn it was like 2 goals in a minute 30 at the end of the game, third period there. And just so exciting, really young, really talented. I got to actually go see their coach talk at a breakfast downtown Hartford as well. And just really down to earth and a really good ambassador for the UConn program. So I really like hockey. Yeah.
If the hockey team gets to play this year, they're actually going to be pretty awesome. So where do you like to go, Fernando? Like before a game, do you have a routine for favorite restaurant? What's your deal there?
Yeah, definitely Bears. Love going to Bears, getting the, mac and cheese and, barbecue food. And then of course it's a nice little walk after all that, to get to the Excel Center. So that's always a good routine.
And mentioning Bears, Front Street's actually a pretty cool area. Again, with everything happening, it's been a little bit of a tough run for some of the restaurants there, but there's a great little movie theater that's actually being rebranded and redone right now in Front Street, Infinity Hall. I'm not always proud to say it, but I saw Gavin DeGraw there a couple of years ago. My wife made me go to that. I did get to go see Toad the Wet Sprocket there. That was pretty awesome. So that's aging myself a little bit, but again, really cool concert venue to go to. That's actually walkable to the UConn Hartford campus. So Megan, how about you? Do you get to go to any athletic events or any UConn related events downtown?
Yeah, I do. So like everyone else, been to a bunch of Yard Goats games, and I love going to see men and women's basketball play at the Excel Center. I'm the wrong person to ask with opponents and stuff. I'm there for like the pretzel and the red panda Chinese acrobats. So so I'm not the one to ask, but it's always a good time. And again, it's like living downtown. It's just something you could walk right over to, make a night of it, especially in the winter. It's nice when not that much is, going on, or you don't want to go too far. It's a nice way to spend an evening, have fun with friends, get some drinks. Like you were saying, go out before and after. So I'm there for the socialization. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I know what's going on.
I'm partial to the Frisbee catching dogs myself, but Red Panda is pretty impressive. So how about you? Do you have a favorite spot to hit before games?
Before games, okay, I really like Agave, which is a restaurant right across from Excel. Great margaritas. So yeah, I'm a big Agave fan. But like I said, I live downtown. A lot of my friends live downtown, so a lot of times we'll just end up hanging out at someone's apartment. Uber Eats stuff from like a block away. Pollo Guapo down over on Front Street is really good. There's a really good, I don't know if anyone on this call is into it, but there's a pretty good vegan scene actually in Hartford. If that's your thing, Fire and Spice Jamaican restaurant over down right off of Broad Street on Capitol is really good. So there's a lot of like smaller restaurants that are really great too, that have been there forever and worth checking out.
Aaron, and this is something Josh will probably be interested in, whether it's Hartford or West Hartford or Bloomfield, lots of good breweries in the area. Have you got a chance to get to any of the places? I know New Park's up your way. Have you gotten to explore the brewery scene, which has been kind of exploding over the last 5 years in Hartford?
Yeah, so there's some good brewers for sure. Hooker Brewery is in Bloomfield. There we go. Gina likes it. Fernando likes it. Good stuff. One of my favorite beers, No Filter, which I'm sure you guys have all had or heard of. So they're awesome. And they're super down to earth crew over there. Super friendly. Like when you walk in, well, there's one in Hartford now. There's one in Bloomfield. One in Bloomfield is like, grungy, but it's awesome. Like just an awesome group of people. And then back east, Bloomfield, classic spot. Absolutely fantastic beers. They have tic-tac-toe and all kinds of games you can play.
UConn alum.
Yeah, UConn alum. There's a few other ones. There's one in New Britain that we've hit. Five Churches is good, New Britain. There's another one in New Britain we've hit. My wife and I do like going to breweries. We just like having some new IPAs. So yeah, some good spots. But hey, I want to address what you were asking about sports, because you guys that are in college that just graduated, I feel bad for you, because the American is crap, and you don't really understand how crap it is until you see what's about to happen. Because, I remember going to UConn Pitt when UConn was 1 and Pitt was 2, and the stinking place was rocking. I mean, it felt like the Raptors were bouncing. It was insane. ESPN game. Like, when you get an ESPN game with the American, it's like, because we feel bad for you because it's Tuesday night and there's nothing else to put on. You guys are going to see what it's like being in the Big East. Pitt and Georgetown. I know some of it shifted, but games against Marquette, and Dwayne Wade, just some classics. So when it comes to sports, the game's going to change. Not this year necessarily talent level, but next 3-4 years when UConn's back, it's going to be awesome.
That's a good point. I do think they're going to, again, I think basketball is likely to play. They got a bunch of studs on the team. They're going to be good this year. I, too, come from the spoiled era as someone that graduated in 2003. The men won it the year before I got to school and the year after I left. But in between, you still had the Karan Butler years. It was awesome. Got to host Arizona when they were number 1 at Gamble. And, again, as someone who's been a season ticket holder, with the exception of maybe hosting Florida in 2014, really haven't had that atmosphere. Although since Coach Hurley came, the energy in the building is so much different. Thank you, Kevin Ollie, for the national championship. But there has been a change in energy since Coach Hurley came.
Well, he's an animal. He's an animal on the sideline. He's like Calhoun.
He's one of us, yeah. And the women's team has been the women's team, and they're going to continue to be. Soccer is, I think, turning in a really good direction for men and women. So I think you're right. I do feel bad for even football. In my early alumni years, Rentschler had 40,000 people for the first 4 or 5 years. It was fantastic. So hopefully Coach Etzel can start to turn things. I actually think going to independent, again, we're getting into our sports, the Nick stuff here, but you can see there was a passion and an energy and a culture at the university that I think changed a little bit, and hopefully we'll start to come back, because we are the flagship university for the state, something we should be really, really proud of. So
Matt,
yeah.
The only other thing we didn't mention was the Hartford Athletic, which is the new soccer team downtown.
Yeah.
And to your point about the UConn soccer team, they're going to be playing downtown a little bit more probably. So that would probably, going forward, be an event that folks can attend.
And one thing,
Wolfpack still there?
the Wolfpack are still there. The Wolfpack
yeah.
still are there. One thing to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, Fernando. So Hartford Athletic plays in a great part of Hartford called Coltsville. And actually, going back to Hooker Brewery, they have a Hartford location right outside of the Hartford Athletic Stadium. That area is the Colt Gateway community. tons of young people moving down there. And it's actually been approved to become a national park, the first national park in Connecticut. That's a prolonged process, but one of the benefits we have, Congressman Larson, who's been pushing that for decades, has some clout. So hopefully he'll continue to push that and make that a reality. But what's nice is between that and, again, Parkville Market, you're starting to see, particularly on the southern end of the city, there's a lot of energy and people moving into that area, which I'm hoping is going to change Hartford from a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday city into something much bigger. Because, again, you can even see it whether it's a UConn game or a Yard Goats game. The energy in the street of people just going to restaurants and then after games wanting to go out because they're just so excited is always great to see. So before we move into our happy hour segment, I do want to just kind of focus on social media because it is obviously of the utmost importance right now. Everyone is kind of Zoomed crazied and zoomed out. We're here, so thanks for coming here. But I know this is becoming a tough way to communicate. Gina, you spoke a little bit about the social aspects of it. From a professional aspect, do you use things like LinkedIn or do you use Twitter, Instagram, and those sites from a professional perspective?
I use a good combination of everything. LinkedIn a lot is just like I make a lot of connections. Some people reach out to me. I've reached out to a few people there. For me, since I work in social media and want to continue working in social media, so many people now are just saying, hey, just DM me. It's becoming one of those just normal things that you do to, I mean, very professionally still slide into the DMs. So less so on Instagram, although you'll still find that companies are trying to hire through their Instagram stories. You'll see like, hey, we're hiring for this particular position, DM us for details. And then everyone is putting out tweets about it for you to DM them, or if you're interested in this opportunity. It's also been a really great way to network. If you follow any specific hashtags, I know Social Media Sports has hashtag SM Sports. So that's one of the hashtags I follow. And there are so many people, actually one UConn alum who now works in Pennsylvania just hosted a Zoom call for people trying to break into the sports business or that are in the sports business, just how to also network. And they really reiterated that to not be afraid to message people on Twitter, because you're not going to get anywhere if you don't get your foot in the door. And I find that Twitter, it's just a little bit easier to have a conversation. You don't feel like the pressure of being like, oh, super, super, super formal, like LinkedIn would be. So it's a great way to connect and network.
Megan, you have anything to add social media wise?
Sure. So like, Gina, I use social media for my job a lot, but I find myself like after I log off, I don't like to use it that much personally, just because I'm like doing it all day. But you know, of course I have Twitter for work, Instagram, all of that stuff, LinkedIn. I think with the journalism field in particular, it's a little different, very much the same in that like your social media presence and can get you jobs without even applying, and just all that public facing stuff really helps. It also helps that the industry is kind of small. And so there's a lot, like everyone knows everyone. Again, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. But yeah, definitely being active about not just work stuff, but just your interests, your hobbies, the things you like. Building a social media persona has helped so many of my friends get opportunities.
How about you, Fernando?
Yeah, not a huge Twitter, Instagram. I don't really have any of that, but I have a LinkedIn. I network on, but I think it would make sense to kind of highlight. UConn has a mentoring network site that I found helpful. You know, scrolling on there, seeing people that I work with or that work at the same company is definitely a good resource to use. But yeah, I'm not a huge social media person.
What about you, Aaron?
No, I'm not a whole huge social media guy. I do use LinkedIn. I do use a little bit of Instagram. I've used it for business, social and for business. It's been successful for business to a limited extent, but primarily, no, I'm not a big social media. So this is how embarrassing it is. My wife had to teach me what a hashtag was. So that's bad. There we go.
Hashtag. Yeah, I am obnoxious on social media, so follow UConn Netch for everything. Instagram, Twitter, it's awesome. I need more followers, whatever. All right, so we're going to be moving on to the happy hour aspect of this. I want to leave it with two things. One, thank you to all the panelists for taking part in this. I feel people have a huge obligation to give back when they can, to who they can, however they can. For some people, that's financially. Sometimes that's energy. Other time, it's just time. These people didn't have to do that. My hope is when you guys become more senior alums and you're asked or have an opportunity to help out the university, please do that. And second, if you're looking to build your resume, build some leadership skills, get involved with either UConn or the greater Hartford community, find something you're passionate about and see if there's a nonprofit in that field that you can either volunteer for, maybe serve on the board of directors for. That's how you're going to get to know people and really make a name for yourself in the community. And again, I think we all have an obligation to give back. So thank you again for taking part. There's a link in the chat room with panelists. Josh is going to take over and do a little exit here, and we'll move on over to the next room.
Thanks, Matt. While we were chatting, we actually reviewed some of the questions that came through while folks were signing up. Some folks provided some questions for us, and now's a good opportunity. We've got about 5 minutes before we'll shift over there, so we'll try to get through some of these questions. And if folks have any, you can use the Q&A or you can use the chat function that you have on your toolbar. But one of the questions that came in, I think, is really actually kind of interesting. What are your best recommended day trips in the area? What do you guys do on the weekends besides hitting the bars and UConn sports?
I could kind of jump in here. So one of the advantages to being in the Hartford region is the fact that you have access to a lot of good landscapes. I mean, we have the Farmington River, great opportunity to go tubing down there on a nice hot summer day. Also some great mountains to hike. You got Talcott Mountain here in Simsbury, Avon area. It's just a nice, it's a nice getaway if you're in the city, or, you can be in the city and go out to the bars as well.
I also love heading down to the shoreline. Mystic in that whole area is awesome. Groton, New London, and there's a lot of things to do down there. And a lot of there's Mystic Seaport, Mystic Aquarium, some awesome restaurants and things to do even when it's not spring or summer. So even in the winter. But I also love taking a little day trip to Newport, get outside Connecticut. That's only 92 hours away. So that's a good day trip too, if you don't want to go to Boston or New York.
So I don't know, for those that they're athletic or just like to get some casual exercise, my wife and I have gotten into biking big time over quarantine. It's something healthy to do, and there's some really good bike trails. There's a trail that goes 22 miles from Farmington up to the Mass border, and it's pretty flat if you don't want to get into hills. But there's some good paths as well if you want to get more rigorous with some hills. So. There's a lot of things that you can just track online, just look it up, but there's some good biking in the area as well.
Right. Oh, go ahead, Megan.
I was gonna say, I would love to be the person that says I go hiking and do all of that. In my ideal image of myself, I do that. And there is a lot of great stuff to do. A lot of times though, I end up I invested in a hammock during quarantine, one of the ones that you hang on the trees. So my big weekend move has been going into Bushnell Park, which is right in the city, bring the hammock, bring board games, food, drinks. I don't know if that's loud, but so and been spending all day on the weekends there. When I'm not doing that, like I said, a lot of my family is in New Jersey and New York, so I spend a lot of time going down there. And pre-pandemic, Hartford line, and there's a Peter Pan bus that's $20 that is 2 hours straight into New York. So getting home is super easy, and being able to just spend a day in the city with my friends, New York City or in New Jersey with my friends, is made really easy by those transportation.
Awesome. This is a question specific to anybody who might have any experience in the West Hartford area. Anybody recommend the best way to do apartment hunting? I mean, I guess it's applicable really in any city, any town and city within the capital area. But what do you guys recommend? Are there certain websites that you go to? Is it about who you know?
I haven't made, oh,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Everybody wants to jump in. All right, Aaron,
mine's quick. Ooh. Hey everyone. Okay, so mine's super quick. I haven't made the jump, but I've looked a lot. Number one, just Googling. But I find that a lot of people rent houses, and it actually turns out to be a little less expensive than doing an apartment if you're open to that. So I would also say Google like house rentals in West Hartford area as well. Next person.
Yeah, and some of the Facebook groups, there's a lot of local Facebook groups like Dwelling in Downtown Hartford, Dwelling in Hartford, Neighbors and Friends of West Hartford. There's like a million Facebook groups for every year, which is one, really great to find things to do and things that are going on or whatever it is. But a lot of people will post if they're renting out a house or a duplex. A lot of people will post through there.
Aaron, you're up.
Yeah, we did rent earlier in our marriage. We rented a place in West Hartford, and we found it through Craigslist, to be honest. And just did a Craigslist search. We did rent in West Hartford. So I'm gonna diverge a little bit, but quick lesson for you guys when you go to buy someplace, because we learned a lesson hard, which is why we're renting again in Bloomfield. Actually, so it's good spots in Bloomfield too. A lot of new apartments, but we bought a condo, and long story short is there were so many issues, and had to end up going to court, and like they had to settle with us. So it ended up okay in the end. But the lesson of the story is when you do go to buy your first place, research your realtor and your inspector beyond. Like, just make sure you get good people. Talk to your network, talk to your friends, talk to your family, and then talk to them again, because you want to make sure you have the right real estate team working with you. Otherwise, you can have a nightmare. So, quick, exit off the question, but just a lesson learned.
All right. And really quick to answer the questions, 5 Churches, New Britain, also UConn alum. Thomas Hooker, his wife's an alum. Back east, there are 2 alums that own it. We can keep going this game if you want. All right, everybody. We have a couple other questions that have come through when you signed up during registration, but we want to jump over to the happy hour. We want to give you some FaceTime with these guys. So when we close, the ideal world and when technology works and your pop-ups are allowed, you will see a pop-up that shows up on your screen. It'll say, take this survey. It's not a survey. It's a redirect to get you into this that'll take you to a web page. If it doesn't, in your chat function, so if you click at the chat on your toolbar right now, you'll see that there's a URL and you need to write down that password. And Lauren just posted it once again. So go ahead, click that link. If you need to copy it, copy the password as well. And if you lose it when we close out, don't worry, check your email. You should have gotten an email. As long as you signed up with the right email, you'll get an email as well about 20 minutes ago from us indicating the same information. So thank you all for joining us here, and we'll see you in a minute or so on the other side.